The lights went dark. The room fell silent. Then Billie Holiday sang a song about bodies hanging from trees. Within years, the most powerful law enforcement agency in America would begin a campaign against her. This isn't just the story of a song. It's the story of how the government tried to silence a voice that refused to look away. Before she became a legend, she was just a young girl trying to survive. Born as Eleanora Fagan in Philadelphia and raised primarily in Baltimore, Billie Holiday entered a world that offered very little protection for Black children. Poverty was everywhere. Violence was common. Opportunity was scarce. The hardships she experienced would leave scars that never fully healed. Yet somehow, amid the struggle, she discovered music. Music became more than entertainment. It became escape. It became survival. And eventually, it became destiny. As the years passed, Billie developed a voice unlike anyone else's. It wasn't technically perfect. It didn't need to be. What made people stop and listen was the emotion. Every note felt lived. Every lyric felt personal. When audiences heard Billie Holiday sing, they believed her. By the late 1930s, she was becoming one of the most recognizable voices in America. Fans adored her. Musicians respected her. Nightclubs wanted her. The world knew her by another name, Lady Day. But while audiences saw glamour and success, another reality existed beneath the surface. A reality filled with racism, violence, and fear. A reality that would soon inspire one of the most controversial songs in American history. The story of Strange Fruit did not begin with Billie Holiday. It began with a photograph, a horrifying image showing the aftermath of a lynching in the American South. The photograph haunted a schoolteacher named Abel Mirapal. Unable to forget what he had seen, he wrote a poem. That poem became a song. Its lyrics were unlike anything being performed in America. There were no happy endings, no romantic promises, no comforting illusions. Instead, the song forced listeners to confront a brutal truth. This strange fruit hanging from southern trees was not fruit at all. It was human beings, victims of racial terror, victims whose stories were often ignored. When Billie Holiday first encountered the song, she immediately understood its power. This wasn't just music. This was testimony. This was evidence. This was history set to melody. And she knew she had to sing it, even if people didn't want to hear it. When Billie introduced Strange Fruit at Café Society in New York, nothing about the performance was accidental. Every detail was carefully planned. The room would go dark. Service would stop. No drinks would be served. No glasses would clink. No distractions would be allowed. Only the song. Only the message. As Billie stood beneath a single spotlight, audiences experienced something rare. Silence. The kind of silence that appears when people realize they are witnessing something important. Something dangerous. Something true. When the song ended, Billie would leave the stage without taking a bow. No encore. No celebration. The audience was left alone with what they had just heard. For many, it was unforgettable. For others, it was unforgivable. Because Strange Fruit exposed a reality that powerful people preferred to keep hidden. And powerful people were paying attention. While Billie Holiday was captivating audiences night after night, another powerful figure was watching events unfold from Washington. His name was Harry Anslinger. At the time, Anslinger served as commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Most Americans had never heard of him. But behind the scenes, he was one of the most influential law enforcement officials in the country. He had spent years building his agency into a powerful force. He believed he was protecting America. He also believed certain voices were becoming too influential. And one of those voices belonged to Billie Holiday. As Strange Fruit spread across the country, the song became more than a nightclub performance. It became a conversation. People discussed it after shows. Newspapers wrote about it. Audiences carried its message beyond the walls of jazz clubs. For many Americans, the song exposed a reality they had spent their entire lives avoiding. For others, it exposed a reality they had lived every day. Either way, people were talking. And that was exactly the problem. Because music has a unique kind of power. A speech can be ignored. A newspaper article can be tossed away. But a song can follow people home. A song can live in their minds for years. A song can make people question things they once accepted without hesitation. Anslinger understood that. He understood that Billie Holiday wasn't simply entertaining audiences. She was influencing them. And influence can be dangerous to those who benefit from the status quo. The more Billie performed Strange Fruit, the more impossible it became to pretend the subject didn't exist. Night after night, she forced audiences to confront images many preferred to keep hidden. The victims of lynching were no longer anonymous, names buried in forgotten headlines. Through Billie Holiday's voice, they became impossible to ignore. To her supporters, that was courage. To her critics, it was provocation. And to men like Anslinger, it was something else entirely. It was a threat, not because Billie carried a weapon, not because she held political office, but because she possessed something arguably more powerful: a stage, a microphone, and an audience willing to listen. As the months passed, federal attention toward Billie Holiday intensified. The woman once celebrated simply as a jazz singer was becoming something larger. A symbol of resistance, a symbol of truth, a symbol that refused to stay quiet. And the government was beginning to notice. Eventually, the warning came. The message was direct. Stop singing Strange Fruit. Remove it from the act. Leave the song behind. Walk away. For many performers, the decision would have been simple. Protect your career. Protect your freedom. Protect yourself. But Billie Holiday had already made up her mind. She wasn't going to stop. She wasn't going to apologize. And she wasn't going to let anyone decide what she could or could not sing. It was a decision that would change the course of her life forever. Because the moment Billie Holiday refused to back down, the battle stopped being about a song. It became a battle between one woman and the power of the United States government. And that battle was only beginning. Eventually, the warning came. The message was simple. Stop singing Strange Fruit. Take it out of the act. Move on. Forget it. For many performers, the decision would have been easy. Protect your career. Protect your freedom. Protect your life. But Billie Holiday wasn't willing to pretend the song didn't matter. She wasn't willing to act as though the people it honored had never existed. And she wasn't willing to let fear decide what she could sing. So she refused. Night after night, she continued performing Strange Fruit. Every performance was an act of defiance. Every lyric was a challenge. Every standing ovation made her enemies pay closer attention. What Billie may not have realized was that her refusal had consequences. Powerful men were already discussing what to do about her. Federal agents were beginning to watch. Reports were being written. Files were being opened. And somewhere behind closed doors, a decision was being made. If Billie Holiday would not silence herself, someone else would try to silence her. The woman who had become one of America's most celebrated singers was about to find herself under a microscope. Not because of her music alone, but because the government had discovered something frightening. A song could be more powerful than a badge, more powerful than a courtroom, more powerful than fear itself. And Billie Holiday had no intention of backing down. What happened next would launch a years-long campaign that many historians still debate today. A campaign that would follow her from stage to stage, city to city, and eventually to the darkest chapter of her life. Because the battle between Billie Holiday and the United States government was no longer coming. It had already begun.